Modern buildings are designed like the Titanic was supposed to be designed. They were supposed to be a compartment. So essentially, you could have a fire in your apartment.
Contain.
Yes, you may be in danger, but no one else is. But as soon as you start breaking that compartment, whether it be via a door being left open or by cladding, bypassing the outside of the building, like in Grenfell, that's when the problems start to really occur. That's really at the core of fire protection, is we compartment everything so it can't spread to the next one.
So really, the occupants of buildings shouldn't be using doorstops? Is that what a bottom line comes to?
Absolutely not. Yeah. So a fire door, a door to an apartment, a door to a hotel room, a door to the fire stairs is a movable firewall. So it's there and only really works if it's actually closed. If it's open, it doesn't work.
Welcome to another episode of the Let's Talk Facilities podcast, the podcast where we explore the insights, innovation, and impact of the FM industry. My name's Ben.
And I'm Aaron.
And today on the show, we've got Rob Broadhead. He is the Director of 2020 Fire Protection.
Yeah, and in this episode, we're chatting all things fire systems and the fundamentals of fire safety and protection.
Also how to make your building compliant.
And building hazards and the compliance gaps that put people at risk in your buildings. So it's going to be a really good episode.
Let's jump in.
Looking for the buyout then? Just be open to change.
Just a good spread. I actually had to learn to do it because the question
My brother had mushrooms growing in his car.
Fantastic spreadsheet is like gold.
Water started pouring on me.
It's such a rewarding career.
Drag them down! We love you all of our customers.
So what's the biggest disaster you've seen happen commercially or maybe not even commercially as a result of people not having fire protections at the right level?
Obviously, in Australia, it would have to be the Bankstown fire, but internationally, Grenfell over in London was probably the biggest one, and that brought the most amount of attention. The cladding, and then the cladding led into the fact their detection and their didn't have sprinklers. Detection wasn't working, a bunch of reasons. But certainly in Australia, in Bankstown, I think it's 2012, Connie Zhang died as a result of a door being left open and then air flowing through due to a illegal sort of mezzanine setup, and then doors open and turn it into a blast furnace. So, all the small things matter a lot.
Wait, when you say a blast furnace, what do you mean? As in, because the air, it was like magnified?
It was an open entryway, open stairwells, and because the door was left open when the first person evacuated, the air rushed through the entire apartment. And air at high speed, high velocity, just like if you turn on your Bunsen burner when you're at school, it turns from a very small flame to a very hot blue flame. And so
It's like when you blow underneath the fire.
Because the hot air from the smoke would be also pulling the air.
That's exactly
and
right.
It's like amplifying it.
That's right, yeah.
Wow.
So that was probably the worst one, and it showed a whole lot of flaws in both council, in the strata manager, in the building managers, and in their maintenance regimes for that building, resulting in one person dying, Connie Zhang, and another girl jumping out the window and being terribly injured.
Well, yeah, when you feel like there's no other escape.
Well, there probably wasn't any other escape.
1,200 degree temperatures inside the apartment.
Oh my goodness.
So there's no escaping that.
No, absolutely not.
And that was all from what? A door being left open?
A door being left open, yeah. So the fire occurred in the apartment or on the apartment's balcony, but then that spread, and then because the door was chocked open as the person ran out, the air being drawn through to the apartment.
So that was a failure of there shouldn't have been something stopping it,
the fire
or
door closer. Yep, the door was chocked open.
Okay,
and therefore the closer didn't allow it to close and latch. So modern buildings are designed like the Titanic was supposed to be designed. They were supposed to be a compartment. So essentially, you could have a fire in your apartment.
Contain.
Yes, you may be in danger, but no one else is. But as soon as you start breaking that compartment, whether it be via a door being left open or by cladding, bypassing the outside of the building, like in Grenfell, that's when the problems start to really occur.
I had no idea that was like a compartment. I had no idea.
That's really at the core of fire protection, is we compartment everything so it can't spread to the next one.
So really, the occupants of buildings shouldn't be using doorstops? Is that what a bottom line comes to?
Absolutely not. Yeah. So a fire door is an apartment, or even this floor of this hotel really should be a compartment in its own right.
Yeah.
And so a fire door, a door to an apartment, a door to a hotel room, a door to the fire stairs is a movable firewall. So it's there and only really works if it's actually closed. If it's open, it doesn't work.
I feel like you would be prime.
I used to live in an apartment building,
Yeah.
and we used to have this brick that would go to that stairwell because just to chock it open, because it was annoying if you were bringing your rubbish out. And there was one person who would always move the brick and leave a sign, please don't leave the brick. And we'd all tear down the sign. Most of us were like, no, the brick's staying there because it makes it easier.
Because it's much easier until it's not.
And now I'm...
So you're dead.
Yeah.
That'll be
Never
really
again
easy.
will I ever put a brick.
Exactly. I mean, scaremongering, but over in the Bronx, in America, they had a fire in a building, and 17 people died. And those 17 people died, and it was traced back via a whole investigation to 2 fire doors where either the closers had failed or they were chocked open. And so the fire occurred in one compartment. The smoke went out of that apartment, that apartment or compartment, and the people who were actually in there, whose apartment it was, they escaped fine because they knew there was a fire. They got out. But of course, 17 other people died in the building because the smoke came out of their apartment rather than staying within it, spread through all of the stairwells because one of the stairwell doors was also chocked open or failed closer, and therefore no one could escape. And no one dies from fire. People die from smoke. And so if smoke escapes through all the building...
You said that just before we started, and I was shocked by that as well. Like, I knew that people die from smoke inhalation, but I also thought people die from fire. But no.
Yeah. Pretty unlikely. Most of the time, you're much further dead by the time the fire gets to you. The smoke gets you first.
That's nice.
That is, yeah.
Yeah. So the burn doesn't hurt as much.
Yeah.
You're already dead.
So you don't know whether to laugh or cry or what.
It's definitely not a thing to joke about, dying from a fire. But is that also a failure of, should there be sprinklers?
It depends on the size of the building. So buildings only need to comply with the code that's in place when they're built.
Yeah.
So if that building was built in 1945 and it didn't require sprinklers in 1945, then it doesn't require sprinklers now, unless your regulatory authority, and in Australia New South Wales, that's the council. In other states it could be council and the fire brigades, but generally it's your local council that enforces that regulation. And so unless they tell you have to upgrade, essentially the building stays as it is.
And I imagine,
these days any building, resi building over 4 floors needs to have sprinklers, and non-resi anything over 25 metres in effective height.
Okay.
And then there's various other regs for industrial complexes and hospitals and all the rest. But essentially they're the 2 main rules that come in. It's either 4 stories and above for resi new construction, or 25 metres for any other type of building.
Yeah, I imagine there would be, if councils are the ones that are, regulating this, I imagine there'd be quite the varying degree of, compliance, and what they permit.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, firstly, one of the challenges we have in across Australia, and particularly New South Wales, where I mostly play, is that every council is a government in its own right. Yeah. And therefore some of them are they have plenty of funds, well funded, and have lots of well staffed and everything, and some of them do not. So, the enforcement of fire regs in City of Sydney, where we are right now, versus in Walgett Shire Council might be entirely different. Yet
because
the risk of the building is maybe the same. But here we have lots of buildings that need review, whereas Walgett Council, or whatever Walgett Council is, I made that one up, may have...
Wait, is that
it's not really a council.
Well, it's a suburb.
Melbourne boys, we have no idea.
No idea.
So totally, they could be enforced entirely differently. So, it's a challenge across all of Australia because, which one gets enforced. But anyway, certainly in New South Wales, the environmental planning assessment regulation, say that one 5 times fast, requires that councils bring all buildings up to a current level of life safety, which is also hard to say quickly. Yes. But meaning that councils have a legal obligation to make sure buildings are actually safe. So even though the building was built in 1945 or whenever it was built, the council really should be checking that it has a current level of life safety. So if it's built out of rice paper and no sprinklers and no smoke detectors and no extinguishers, they really should be doing something about it.
Yeah.
So
and I guess then if something were to happen, there's a level of like fault on them.
Fault and liability, yeah.
Yeah, liability.
Going to Queensland, part of the reason we were talking before about licensing regs in Queensland, they're quite different to New South Wales, and that's because they had a fire called the Childers Backpackers Fire, and all of the coroner's findings, due to these people dying, all came down to the liability was spread across a whole bunch of people, including the council, because it wasn't being maintained properly. The defects hadn't been rectified. There was things that the building owners had done that was inadequate, and council had done nothing to follow it up in terms of making sure that it was actually safe, even though they had evidence to show that it probably wasn't.
Yeah.
So the liability is across many people in these things.
Yeah, I can imagine. I'm new to the facilities industry. Like, I'm a baby compared to some who have been in for years and years and years. And we were walking through a building only a couple of weeks ago, and do you know what I'm about to say?
Yeah, I do.
I was shocked by this thing that if you stand under it for too long, it starts beeping, get out of the way. What was it called? The fire curtain.
Fire curtain.
Because there was this stairwell that went up.
Yep.
So why are they important, and why on earth isn't there a better system in place to stop?
That's a pretty good system, but...
But if you're a cleaner and you're cleaning, it's going to annoy you.
That's a really, really complex answer, that one. But it goes back to what we started talking about first, which is compartmentalisation and stopping smoke spread. So that's probably at the core of all of this.
Yeah.
And so, we're in a hotel now. It's pretty easy to have doors that are closed and latched and all the rest of that. It doesn't really get in the way of you doing what you do every day.
Yeah.
Whereas if you have an office building, with a really big business, and you really want all of your staff to interrelate with each other, you can't fit them all on one floor, or it's not really realistic. You often have stairs between the levels, but you don't really want to have those stairs locked off.
Yeah.
And so quite often they cut a hole in the floor, they put a stairwell through there, but that breaches all of the building code requirements in terms of compartmentalisation. And so then to make it even more complex, the building code is a performance document, okay? Mm-hmm. So the way that laws can be written is they can be prescriptive or they can be performance-based. Yeah. And so prescriptive is easy. It's 1 + 1 = 2.
Yes.
And that is the only way that you shall calculate it, and you shall show your workings as 1 and a 1, and that equals 2. Full stop. No other way.
Yep.
However, we all know that we can add up to 2 via lots of other ways.
Yeah. 0.5.
Half plus 1.5, whatever, however you want. And so since 1996, the building code has been a performance document, meaning that if you can get a fire engineer to say, I can achieve the same outcome as the prescriptive requirements via other means, and here's my computer modelling to show that, then you're allowed to do that. And so in the case of those curtains you're talking about, it's permissible because a fire engineer will have said, well, I've worked out that if we have a fire curtain, once the smoke occurs, and there'll be smoke detectors that specifically activate that, it'll shut in 32.1 seconds, which will therefore mean that the number of steps or the number of minutes or number of seconds for everyone to evacuate from that floor will be impacted by 10 seconds. So I'll change some smoke detector spacing or some sprinkler spacing or something to offset that, and therefore get the same performance outcome that was there. And so going back to your beeping, it's really just beeping because if you happen to be standing in its way when it needs to close in a real hurry to meet that performance obligation, it's not going to actually work, and therefore it runs the risk of the whole thing come crashing down, or it just lands on your head. That's
like creative accounting.
It really
pretty
is.
much, legal creative accounting.
Yeah.
So hopefully the performance solutions work. But you will find weird things like that more and more in buildings. Now, if you speak to the Australian Building Standards Board, I can't think, ABCB, they really have the mandate to push performance solutions more and more because government sees it as the way to reduce the cost of building and therefore reduce costs for the consumer.
I guess it also shows innovation and that we're moving forward, right? Like there's certain things that are just archaic and at one time they were right for us, but today there's better solutions.
Absolutely. Well, we talk. I'm sure we'll talk at some stage today about last month there was a new Australian standard called
Let's
AS
talk about it now.
1851 2012. Crazy that it's 2012 edition that's been legislated
Wait, that
in New
was
South
a new
Wales.
standard?
It's an existing standard, but it's being legislated in New South Wales for the first time last month.
Okay.
But, going back to innovation thing, it still says you must have paper records left on site for every test you do to the fire system.
Oh, wow.
Well, they'll disappear
Who's
if
done
a fire
anything on
happens.
paper for the last 10 years? They will burn.
Yeah,
They will burn.
non-compliant building, or why was there a fire all of a sudden?
Well, I don't know. It's all gone.
I have seen fire pump panels where the paper logbooks have been put inside the panel, and then the battery charger has overheated and caught the logbook on fire, which I found really amusing. No one died, so we can laugh at this one. But it is pretty funny.
You're going to get ordered. It's like, okay, how do we get rid of the evidence?
Let's burn the building.
Yeah. So there's well and truly some archaic things left out of there that performance regulations allow you to get rid of or do via other more modern means.
Have we had any examples yet of those performance solutions not working?
Question.
Yeah.
None that have been proven in the coroner's court, to my knowledge.
Okay.
Yep. There's
I'd just be interested because I can't remember which city in the States there was a famous building that was built and the engineer had miscalculated something and they realized like a year after it had opened.
Mm-hmm.
Can't remember, maybe it was Chicago or New York. I can't remember exactly which one. But that just makes me think of like a performance solution is kind of the same thing. Like this building was really going out on a limb with like some cutting edge design. And when he realized that it could basically fall over at any point in time, like then they obviously had to go back and...
I mean, it'll eventually happen, don't get me wrong, because, performance solutions aren't, particularly in the early stages, weren't necessarily, they didn't have to reference each other. So particularly if you're talking about a commercial office building in the CBD, they might have a performance solution for every single floor because, Joe Blogg's lawyers may have a different need than XYZ stock traders on the other floor.
Yep.
And so each of them will have a different performance solution. But when you play them all out across the whole building, when an actual incident occurs, when do you get that Swiss cheese effect where something falls through the hole?
Yeah.
So as I said, nothing's been yet, proven in the coroner's court, which is pretty much the only place where you're going to get case law that's going to prove whether these things do or don't work. And in Australia, we hate it when when with some things that get forced upon us. We're very over-regulated as a country.
Yes.
But the flip side of that is we're pretty bloody safe. Yeah. Whether it be from fire or from our own stupidity, other than when you go snowboarding on other countries. We're pretty safe. So it's usually unlikely that Swiss cheese effect occurs because we have backups for backups for backups.
Yes.
Particularly in modern buildings, which have if you were to go to the States, you will see a huge proliferation of fire sprinklers, but you'll see very little in terms of automatic smoke detection systems. If you go to mainland Europe, you'll see huge proliferation of smoke detection and early warning systems, much fewer sprinklers.
Oh, really?
So it's just the way their standards of it have evolved.
Where do we sit on that spectrum?
We usually have both.
Both.
Because our standards have basically evolved from both. They've pulled in from the EN European standards, they've pulled in from the ISO international standards, and and particularly sprinklers have pulled in from the American NFPA standards. So we have kind of both. And so we've got this overlay or double safety in there. So it's for newer buildings, we're pretty bloody safe.
Yeah. So coming back to the standards, the standard that has just been legislated in New South Wales, what does that mean for FMs in and around New South Wales? What's happening?
The first thing, I guess, is awareness. So up until now, theoretically you should have already been maintaining your building to AS 1851 2012, because most building legislation says that you must maintain your building, you must maintain the essential fire safety measures in it. It just didn't say how you should do it.
Okay.
But if you go and speak to a lawyer under common law, and again, not proven yet, I don't think in case law, but under common law, if you're required to maintain something, the first thing the coroner's going to go is well, is there an Australian standard or a law that says you should do it?
Yes.
And even though it doesn't reference it, they're going to go, well, which is the current code? Oh, well, that's the current code. Why didn't you use it?
Yeah.
And it would be pretty hard, I think, in a court of law to say, well, I chose to do something other than that because I know better.
Yes.
When that's probably the the benchmark for how you really should be doing the minimum of it. So in terms of FMs, they just need to know, firstly, it's in. Secondly, they need to make sure that they're engaging with contractors who are adequately licensed for it and actually will give them good advice and be transparent with their reporting in it, because there's a lot of misinformation out there as to how it should be implemented, when they're due to do certain items in there.
Is that an issue with contractors? Is there cowboys out there?
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
Really?
There's 900 fire
in the
companies.
fire space, there's cowboys.
900 fire companies.
Yeah, so there's 900 fire companies in New South Wales alone, and most of them are here in Sydney. There's about 1,800 to 2,000 across Australia, and
I just never would have thought
it's
unbelievable.
There was
that many.
It's quite huge, the number of them, and the reason for that is the barriers to entry have been zero.
Oh.
So there's been.
I would have thought that there would be quite a higher.
Yeah, even though we're incredibly over-regulated in terms of the number of regulations we need to comply with, we're incredibly under-regulated in terms of are you competent to do it and enforcing whether you are or are not. You could be an Uber driver yesterday and fire protection expert the next day.
So you said before that they should be checking, are they licensed to do it?
Yep.
If you can be an Uber driver yesterday and a fire protection...
Nothing against Uber drivers.
No. But what I mean is
they're great, yeah.
What sort of licensing is there? Like, what are they checking for?
So for the inspection testing, there is no current licensing, and that's still coming.
Really?
New South Wales anyway. Yep.
Wait, so
we could go out tomorrow.
We could just go out and
yes, you could. Yep.
and just with a checklist go yep, and then you pass your council audit or
There's plenty
whatever.
of those companies out there, and we.
Is that just in New South Wales or across Australia?
It's across Australia. New South Wales is probably the worst because it's had more stringent regulations you must comply with, but no enforcement whatsoever of who shall do it.
Oh, wow.
So
Victoria's probably the worst because we're the red tape state.
Well, that's, I think, good in this situation.
Yes, yeah. But yeah, there's this incredible breadth of quality that's out there, and so the FMs need to really they need to prosecute the not legally but ask good questions of their fire contractor as to what they're really doing, and where I'm really going here is the requirement to maintain your building to that Australian standard AS 1851 is the owner's responsibility.
Yes.
Okay, it's not the fire contractor's responsibility. It's not specifically the FM's responsibility, but the FM is acting on behalf of the owner, and therefore, if they're not making sure that their fire contractor is actually doing it properly, is actually licensed for it, and is transparent with their records and asset lists and things like that, then they're putting their customer at risk, the owner. And there's fines possible, and there's all sorts of things like that. But mostly it's about the risk, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you maintain your car properly, guess what? It probably keeps driving.
Yeah.
If you don't maintain it properly, it probably doesn't. And in this case, what happens if your fire system doesn't work when you really need it?
Yeah.
Well,
and it comes up all the time on the podcast of like one of the FM's roles really these days is to have a Rolodex of trusted people that they can call on when they need to. And part of that comes from like your network and knowing that, okay, there's 100 other FMs that are using this provider. They're probably the safer bet than this guy who rocked up on my doorstep with
who's the cheapest, probably.
Yeah, the cheapest and just lives next door. Like
exactly right. We were just talking about one in a meeting before I came here. We got the contract. We started doing the maintenance. We found a collection of defects, and then the building manager's given us told us off the record the owners are looking for an alternate contractor. They don't like what you told them.
Yeah.
And he goes, and by the way, you only won it because the last people told them something they didn't like to hear either. And so we've got this whole this whole system where people are out shopping for signatures to get someone to sign it off to avoid fixing something that's actually there to keep them safe, which seems insane to me.
Yeah. And why would you, as a business owner in this industry, why would you compromise in order just to satisfy one client.
exactly
That's your
right,
reputation.
Exactly
and
right.
they shouldn't want someone who's going to do that.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, I'd be looking going, oh, I don't want to work with that guy if he's willing to sacrifice his integrity.
Morals and integrity.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think it does come down to money.
Of course it does.
You know, if they can find someone to do it cheaper, tick the boxes, some people are going to do that.
Of course.
Some landlords are going to do that.
But I think that's where, going back to your question about, what FMs need to know about this.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if they get the cheapest person to go do it and not do the work they didn't want to do, the owner is still liable.
Yeah.
Okay, not the fire company that just did the dodgy job. I mean, sure, you can probably, once the owner's liable, they can probably sue this person.
Counter.
You can go down
The insurance company would probably then look at
down to your proportionate liability or whatever the wording is for that.
But they only became a fire service operator yesterday. They're probably already back Uber driving the next week.
Yes, yeah.
They made their buck and they're out.
Yep. So so it's frightening that sort of things. But it's slowly changing. There was a whole lot of reform documents that came out. I mean, same with most government reform documents. There's at least 10 iterations of it before anyone actually goes, "Ooh, maybe we should do something about that."
Yeah.
But certainly, New South Wales now is leading the way in terms of actually implementing those reforms that were recommended over many years. With that, and to put it in the words of the previous building commissioner, his word, because he's been trying to fix new construction to try and avoid the sheer number of defects and crappy buildings that we've had coming through all the way across Australia. And his next phase after he fixed the builders and developers was to go, well, there's no point building this gold-plated building if the people who are going to touch it for the next 20, 50, 100 years are not equally competent, licensed, accredited, otherwise, to make sure that building maintains the same level of safety and quality that it had. Because buildings should last for 50 to 100 years quite easily.
Yes.
I think there's a lot of buildings that are built now that not going to last that long.
No. Actually, when the building defects issues were really at their highest, one of my accredited practitioners, so the guys who sign off the annual fire safety statement every year, he said to me, every time I walk into a building where there's a whole lot of fire defects, I start wondering whether I should even be in the building.
Yes.
And I'm like, whatever. I didn't really put any thought into it until, of course, Opal Towers occurred out in Homebush, where again, the Swiss cheese, it's a big building, 30-something stories.
Was it built for the Olympics?
Around the Olympics, but I can't remember if it was built before it, but it basically it was actually not a badly built building, and we actually only got them their first annual fire safety statement last year, so good. They promptly canned us afterwards. Basically they had a big concrete wall up on the 18th floor or something, and it was poured very slightly under the MPA rating that concrete needed to be for that thing, and then it had been designed slightly incorrectly where the pressure points on the feeting were just putting too much pressure on one side, and then the electrician the architect said we want some lighting over there, so the electrician chased the cable, which is where you cut a groove in the concrete to get the cabling over there to get the lighting in, and Swiss cheese, and that's how the building cracked and everyone was evacuated, and
I remember
that huge issue with it.
And that's obviously been rectified now.
That's been rectified now, yeah. And so, as I said, it's a pretty well-built building in the scheme of things. It was just one of those Swiss cheese.
Still don't want to be in it. Sorry.
But,
no offence to whoever.
There was plenty of other ones that were horrific. There was one in a I won't name the suburb because it's got some other buildings in there that have been named, but while we were in a building across the road from a particularly bad named one, we were just busy doing our testing, and a column in the car park exploded.
No.
Yeah.
Exploded
and fired concrete across the floor.
Yeah, from the sheer
compression of it.
Compression,
It broke some windows and all the rest. And so, there's some... I started actually believing my accredited practitioner about, if you walk into a building and you see lots of fire defects, maybe I shouldn't be in here. Maybe it's the canary in the coal mine that tells you. So, the government is currently working out what are the canary in the coal mine things they need to be looking for in terms of enforcing maintenance of buildings moving forward. So, when it comes back to those building defects, when looking for which buildings should we look at to see if the construction is good or bad, they worked out that if the hoarding around a construction site was starting to fall to pieces and there was lots of rubbish inside the hoarding with big offcuts and things, that was the leading indicator to go in there and do it. Just like, I'm sure, I don't know about you guys, but if I go to the dunny in a restaurant and the dunny's not clean, I'm like, not sure we should be eating here. Should be a leading indicator of something else going on.
Well, that's interesting.
So I distracted you from the standards. I don't think we've. Like, how else is it going to affect FMs?
They need to plan for it, I guess, is probably a key thing. So the maintenance code puts forward the steps as to how you shall do it, and that means that for your smoke detection system, it's tested every month. For your sprinklers, every month. For your extinguishers, hydrants, hose reels, every 6 months. Everything's tested every year. And as far as the mindset of most FMs up until about 9 months ago was everything ended at the annual. But the Australian standard for maintenance or preventive maintenance of fire systems has 5 yearly, 10 yearly, 25 yearly, various other tests that are more extensive, that are there to make sure that building actually lasts a longer period of time. So, as a fire contractor, the greatest way to lose a fire contract, a couple of years ago or before, was to flick through the quote for the 5 yearly or the 10 yearly to the FM, because they look at this thing for 10, 20, 50, $100,000 and go, no way, and I'm getting rid of you. And off they go. So it's no longer an option. That 5 yearly, 10 yearly actually exists, and it's really, really important too. So there's lots to it, but take the most important one, I think, is a fire hydrant system, which is the big pipes that serve the fire hydrants that the fire brigade runs up the stairs and plugs into and goes and puts the fire out with. So kind of important, you'd think.
Pretty important.
Every 5 years, you're supposed to hydrostatically test that.
What does that mean?
Like a big word, but basically it means you over-pressurize it to 1.5 times the regular system pressure to make sure that all the pipe work and the valves and everything are all...
There's no leaks.
No leaks, and they're not going to explode or they're not rusted out or otherwise, because when the fire brigade turns up to go and put that fire out, the first thing they do is plug in their truck into the street, and they plug it into a booster connection at the front, and there was one at the front here, which I can show you later. And they basically pump the water into the building so that the fire brigade guy on level 17 gets exactly the pressure he wants, not just what pressure is being delivered by the building's inbuilt automatic systems.
So they're basically putting extra pressure into the pipes.
Yes, they are. And so sometimes they overpressurize it because they don't know the layout of the building, they don't know quite why they're there. So that 5 yearly is really important to make sure that we don't find out when there's a fire that there's a problem with the pipe work. We find out long before there's a fire.
Yeah, because if it's not tested, they'll do that, pressurize the pipes, and it'll explode on level 3, but they needed it on level 8, and then they've got nothing.
Exactly right. Yeah. And that's why you do
it.
And that's why
not good.
Not good at all. No.
That was the most mansplaining.
No, I'm just trying to understand.
But you're exactly right. Absolutely, totally.
Was that mansplaining?
Basically.
I'm just trying to understand.
You were thinking out loud.
So far, so it's not mansplaining at the moment.
No, you were thinking out loud. I liked that.
But no, it's dead right. You want to know that there's a problem in the system on level 3 before you have to put a fire out level 8. So exactly right.
So how does an FM, like they get a list of 50 plus defects. Mm-hmm. How do you, as an FM, go, okay, these are the ones that are critical and these are the ones that, how do you figure that out?
First and foremost, your fire contractor should be able to tell you which ones are, and they should be able to show you examples. So there's a good...
Not if they were an Uber driver yesterday.
Not if they were Uber driver yesterday. But for those guys who have more than 2 days out from Uber driving, should have
3 days.
Yeah, 3 days. 3 days will be fine. No, there's a good practice guide put out by the Fire Protection Association of Australia, which outlines what constitutes all those types of defects, or at least the main examples of them. Certainly in New South Wales, the Building Commission has a FAQs document they've put out, as in what things are different types of defects. So all of this has been clarified fairly well. There's actual documentation out there that the FM can rely on to do it, and I can share those links if you'd like.
Yeah.
After this. But also, any fire contractor who is actually reputable will actually be telling you how it's categorised, and they'll also be showing you exactly why and how and where and which standard says you must do that. Why? Because you should be able to explain every single time what piece of legislation says I have to do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's not too many grey areas if you actually read the codes and the standards. If you don't read them, there's lots of grey areas. Yeah. So you've got to come back to, you need to prosecute the contractors you're using and make sure you believe they're actually competent, because they can prove it. And swapping them out every year to do it is probably not going to help you find out whether they're competent or not.
No. It's like, I guess, when we get like clients who have had slip tests done and they get a report that just says whether they failed or passed. And they're like, what do I do with this?
Yeah.
And then we come in, if we do a slip test, we give them here's our recommendations and here's just a quote, but you can go and get other quotes, but here's a quote if we were to do it. So like a good fire protection company would come in with, here's the defects, here's the how and the why and the where and the when. Like, here's everything.
Exactly.
Basically what you're saying.
And I think, another thing that FMs, really should be doing is that, your fire contractor, particularly if they're reputable, has a ton of data on the systems and assets you have in your building. And, FMs are acting as a business, looking after the building owners' needs and wants and obligations and legislative requirements. Most fire contractors who actually know what they're doing and have been on site for a couple of years, they know exactly the condition of your assets. They know the condition of your systems. We could tell you, plus or minus a couple of dollars, how much it will cost you for the next 10 years, and particularly if it's a FM building that's strated, where you have to do a 10-year sinking fund report. We could tell you exactly what it's going to cost for the next 10 years. We might not know it's 2028 or 2029, but it's within reason. We can tell you exactly the lifespan of each of those assets and when they're likely to require their 5 yearlies and when the fire panel is likely to go out of no longer supported by the manufacturer and things like that. We should be, as business people, the thing you really want is knowing what's going to cost next year.
Yeah.
Because in your budget, what you need to spend or what you need in revenue or what you need, for the other things that go into it. But no one ever asks for that.
Interesting.
But yet it would make,
because that'd be quite
sense.
Predictable as well.
It's very predictable, yeah. And particularly because you have, once now that AS 1851 is legislated, you know which year the 5 yearly is going to occur, you know which year the 10 yearly is going to occur, and therefore it's really easy to budget what that's going to be.
Yeah. How are you seeing, because I'm imagining there's been lots and lots of advancements in the way we build buildings and technology is changing the way buildings are run. How have you seen that affect the fire standards and the fire protection in a building?
In terms of the standards, they're very slow to change.
Okay.
As I said, 1851 is a 2012 version, and we've been trying for years to try and get a revision of that. So we had an amendment in 2016, but all of the standards change very slowly. I guess in terms of the where technology comes in, where there's a lot more interfacing between the fire alarm panel and every other system in the building these days. Yep. And a lot of that relates to smoke control. So, back to where we first started, and this, smoke kills, fire, is just what does the damage later.
Yeah.
And so, a lot of modern buildings have very, very complex smoke control systems, whether it be those curtains, whether it be dampers that shut down air going through things, whether it be areas that are pressurized or exhausted or otherwise, like to make sure that smoke can't spread and that egress pathways are kept clear. So, not technology, but every high-rise building, the stairwells are pressurized. Once you go into fire mode, so a big fan at the top blows air into the stairs. Make sure they're pressurized at all times, so that even if the fire is right here, as soon as you open that door over there to exit to go into the stairwell, the air will be flowing out, smoke won't go in, and therefore that stairwell is always kept safe for egress.
That's great.
Yeah, but that's just one type of the pressurization and smoke control that occurs in a building. That's probably the oldest one that's out there.
Is there like automation that, because I'm imagining like HVAC systems, like right now the fan's on high, and in a fire you were saying that airflow is a problem. Yep. Is there automation that turns all that off?
100%. Yep. So In the case of this one here, I don't know, but if it's
isolated to this room,
if it's isolated to this room,
Yeah.
it won't turn off because it's just blowing
Just
air around this room.
recirculating, yeah.
But if it was coming from out in the common area of the building, it would have probably a damper a flap that can shut where it comes through the firewall, and it probably would shut down in a fire because it goes through compartments. So yeah, lots with that. So a really interesting property we used to look after before WestConnex took it over, but we used to look after
Before it burnt down, I thought
it did not burn down. The M5 tunnels did not.
I don't know why
burn
that's
down.
where my mind went. I just thought it was before it burnt down.
But interesting, they had lots of fires because it made it really. So tunnels we're talking about here is interesting properties, and what we're talking about is interfacing. If you had a fire in the tunnel, it would the fire control system would call the fire brigade. B, it would change the speed limits in that particular tunnel. It would pressurise the other tunnel and the cross passages in between. It would slow the traffic on the other side down. It would close a boom gate coming into the tunnel.
Oh wow!
It would evacuate the air from the area where it is. It would turn the cameras on to that specific area. It would pressurise everywhere that wasn't that specific area. It would exhaust air out from that up through its special things. Huh. It would operate the evacuation system via a cascading methodology.
Wow!
And that's just the ones that I can remember off the top of my head. But the
sheer amount
of interfacing between systems is huge.
Yeah.
And a high-rise building, is not dissimilar to that tunnel. It's just one goes up and the other one goes along.
Yeah, that's true.
As they do catch fire, they have lots of fires in there. So it was really cool.
Can't jump out of a tunnel.
No, you can't. No. But really cool as a fire contractor because most buildings. They'll have a fire here or there, but it's usually isolated to one room or one thing. So to actually work on those tunnels where they have regular fires, and the fire's often quite substantial because they're trucks or cars or otherwise.
Oh, so that's fairly regular.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I guess there are a lot of tunnels in Sydney too.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. That's true.
But it was good to see the systems actually work, and they were amazing systems. They have deluge systems, so it puts I think it was 10 millimetres per square metre per minute on the floor. So it's like when you parked a ute inside of that section, you couldn't see it from the outside of that section. Yeah, basically swimming, yeah. So really, really cool.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Car wash.
It was definitely not a car wash. Any person who works in fire sprinklers knows that sprinkler pipe is made of steel pipe that is not galvanised, and the water, when it goes in, it basically dies or rusts, then it dies and it turns black. And so the first emission from any sprinkler system is this most horrific black stanky water.
Of course, because it doesn't get cycled.
No, it doesn't, yeah. So
just once the water is in there, it's just
more or less
in there
stays
for like 50 years maybe.
That's right, yeah.
Yuck.
And so it can do that because it doesn't keep rusting because all the oxidizer, all the oxygen in the water disappears because you've rusted the first little layer of pipe. But yeah, that water basically stays in there forever and ever.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah. And it's just this black sludge that comes
So that's how that pipe doesn't rust?
Yes, because it's really just, there's no oxygen in the water, so therefore it doesn't rust any further. And so, just for interest's sake, so fire hydrant systems are galvanised because every time you open a valve, the water flows through the pipe and therefore the water is re-oxygenated. Whereas with the sprinkler system, you do drain water out, but it's only draining water in and out of the alarm valve assembly enough to activate the alarms or run a flow test. You're rarely drawing all of the water out of the whole system, and therefore that water stays deoxygenated for ever and ever and ever.
Huh. While we're actually talking about the sprinklers, I want to know, is that on the same pipe network as what we were talking about before with the boosting at the street? Or is it separate?
Two answers. It's on a different system to the fire hydrant system we were boosting before. Most of the time, there are combined systems.
Okay.
But no, generally it's a separate system. So the sprinklers, they'll also have a boost down there for the fire brigade to use, but fire brigade is much less likely to boost the sprinklers because the sprinklers are fully hydraulically calculated to give exactly the right pressure at exactly that point in the building. So they're designed to the very last point of the system.
Wow.
By a hydraulic engineer, whereas a hydrant system is designed with a much more simple system. It's you shall have this flow and pressure at the hydrants and between this level and that level. So it's less complex, but more likely that the fire brigade boosts it from the street.
Are most sprinkler systems these days, do they isolate to the area where the fire is and not just the whole building sprinkling?
They work on heat, don't they?
They do. So contrary to
the movies.
To the movies.
That's what I picture.
Megan Fox running through there.
Yeah.
Whatever that movie was, Backdraft, I think it was.
Yeah.
Only one sprinkler head goes off. So each sprinkler head is a valve in its own right. It has a little glass bulb which holds a little plug in place, just like the plug in your bathtub. Mm-hmm. And so that little glass bulb, generally the red ones are 68 degrees Celsius. So when it gets to 68 degrees, it heats up, just like the old thermometer that you used to have. It the little alcohol in it expands, breaks the glass. Once the glass is broken, the little plug pops out, water sprays through there.
Wow.
And so generally, one head will go off. If the fire's really big, it'll set off other ones around it. But it's only one at a time. Oh. Different in movies and different in the tunnel.
Okay.
So movies are for the movies, and the tunnels are.
Well, that's where I get my. That's where I get all my knowledge.
Heads.
Exactly right. Yeah. As
special systems in the movies. System,
they do. Yeah. as my son was sledged by one of his mates only recently. YouTube's not research,
No, it's really not. So tell me a little bit about before we. I think we're running out of time, but. With maintenance and finalising that sort of conversation around FMs, getting reputable companies to come in, do the maintenance checks, sort of full 360 back to the doors. Is there maintenance checks you need to be doing on doors?
100%. Every 6 months, you're checking that it opens, that it closes, that it latches in place, so that we were saying before about the airflow. Once it gets going, it needs to latch so it can't get blown open and let air through. You're checking that the door is still in one piece. So a fire door is I said it was a movable firewall. It's only a movable firewall until you've exited, and then it's actually a immovable one because it basically expands out into its steel frame and locks in place.
From the heat?
From the heat, yeah.
Wow.
Oh, I thought it was like some feature.
No, well, it is a feature. It expands out into a steel frame to make sure that it can't fall out, because eventually the timber on the outside of the door is going to peel off, and
yes,
everything else is going to melt away.
But I mean, by the time that happens,
core is bolted in place. Yeah. So
by the time that happens, you want the people
everyone's
on.
out.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly right. So doors have maintenance too. Every type of fire system or emergency system in a building has maintenance requirements in there. And I think to a point we were discussing before we started recording, the maintenance is not the maintenance and the annual fire safety statement are, not legislatively connected, but they're important to each other because one collects data for the other. And neither of which is a, single day event. In fact, it's not even a 90-day event for the annual fire safety statement. It needs to be a 365 thing that you have. You want to have a plan in place for the whole year, because you want to know the condition of everything long before you get to the annual testing. You want to make sure that you have the right people lined up for those tests and those annual assessments long before you get there. A common one for FMs and that gets mucked up is often we have to test the fire system in conjunction with the air conditioning system because of that interfacing we were talking about before, perhaps in conjunction with the lifts and the lift landing doors and maybe some other contractors. And of course, if the FM hasn't planned and organised who is going to be doing those things, have I planned for all those people to be there at the same time, and are each of them actually qualified, licensed, accredited otherwise to do that item there, it can cause that annual regime to run late. And there's, particularly in New South Wales, there's lots of fines you can get if you run late with your annual fire safety statements and the like. And so it's really important that we're planning way in advance for these things, because there's so many things, whether it be access or assets or individual contractors that go into it.
Yeah, well, if, let's say there's a FM new to the game, what's a piece of advice you'd give them when it comes to fire protection?
I would suggest read the Building Commission's FAQs on building owner responsibility when it comes to maintenance of fire systems. That'd probably be the first thing, because I was a member of the Fire Safety Industry Reference Group. I was representing FMA Australia on it for the Building Commission New South Wales, and we wrote those FAQs we wrote them in a way that could be understood by anyone, so that anyone who came in, to FM yesterday could read this and understand it from a layman's perspective, what they are obligated to do from a fire perspective.
Yeah, fantastic. That's it. I like when things are simplified.
Yeah.
Because you walk into some place and you just have no idea. So it's for an entry level person who's walking in and making something that's just digestible is so good.
Exactly. Really, really important. And there's more coming from that. We're hoping to reconstitute that committee so that we can start working on the next range of FAQs, because the way something's answered for maintenance is slightly different to how you might do it for the annual fire safety statement, because, as I said, they're two different pieces of legislation that aren't directly related. So, one answer might be different to the other. Probably a last one, actually, a good one for FMs, and one of the pieces of misinformation that's out there is AS 1851, the maintenance code that you're now legislatively required to meet as the building owners.
Yep.
It has two versions. It has the original one from 2012 and it has an amendment in 2016. And the Amendment 1, 2016, is the one that you want to be reading. Yeah. So if you're checking up on what we're doing, you want to be reading the Amendment 1. If you're asking your fire contract, are you telling me this from Amendment 1? Amendment 1 is the one that has been legislated. And the reason I'm touching this, because it's ultra boring just to be talking about Amendment 1 versus Amendment 0. No one's interested in that. But it makes a big difference to FMs, because the first version required you to develop baseline data for most everything. So if you didn't have, a list of where every single thing existed, or if you didn't have a list of every type of fire extinguisher, you had to develop that from scratch. And that was thrown out in Amendment 1 because it was overly onerous and it wasn't fair on building owners to force them to have to do something that they didn't have because it was never existed for their building. Yeah. And so if your fire contractor is telling you need to develop this baseline data, you really need to prosecute them on why they're saying that. So there's only 2 or 3 very minor things where baseline data is required, and most of that is around fire sprinkler and fire hydrant system design duties on a block plan. So the flow and the pressure it's required to achieve, because with most of the other baseline data, it's it'd be nice, but it's not that urgent. Whereas with sprinklers and hydrants, if you don't know what flow and pressure it needs to achieve, you have no idea whether it will actually work in a fire. So that piece of information is required, baseline data, but the vast majority of other, not required. So
I feel like fire protection, if I was an FM, fire protection would be one of the ones where I'd just want the best in the game looking after it. Like we deal with floors. At the end of the day, go and get anyone to do your floors, because it's not killing anyone. No. But this is like...
Yeah, it's
really
you could have
complex. Some pretty serious trips.
Yes, exactly. Especially if the sprinklers went off and there's all that black water.
Oh, yeah. Then you get the best in to fix the black water. But
it's really complex. I mean, FM, I don't envy the job of an FM. This is just one of the of the trades and the responsibilities they have. Could be flooring and the separators of it. Could be fire. It could be HVAC. It could be lifts. It could be
on the hierarchy of importance. We're right down the bottom.
We are right down the bottom, and fire's right up.
Generally, it's the floor, right?
Yeah. On the floor.
They walk all over
it.
There's a great puns that I'm hoping you're using there.
We do. We're a very punny company.
Yes,
we are very.
A mate of mine's in lifts and elevators, and someone will ask him how's business. He goes, it's up and down. It's a great one there.
Oh well. I like that you were on fire today. Thank you.
Thank you. That was the fun I was looking for.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.